What creates a strong economy is fairness and decency.
You're not answering the question, Mr. Shorten.
Oh, OK. I'm going to give someone else a go.
Answer the question. When can people know?
Dan.
When can people know, Mr. Shorten, the cost of the economy? You didn't answer the question.
Do you know what, John?
Leading to this fiery exchange.
We're here to ask questions and you're not answering the question.
Dan.
When can people expect to know, Mr. Shorten, the cost of the economy?
All right, Dan.
Why can't you answer the question, Mr. Shorten?
Because I'm going to give your colleagues half a go.
No, because
Dan.
you should answer it. Why can't you answer the question, Mr. Shorten?
Dan, I'm going to go to you.
Well, it was the exchange that changed an election. You see, I'm old enough to remember a time when Labor weren't unelectable as they say they are now. I don't believe it, but anyway. I remember a time when the coalition absolutely couldn't win. And it's easy to see why. I mean, after 2 terms of infighting and 3 years of catastrophic leadership under the great communicator Malcolm Turnbull, well, I didn't expect the coalition to win, nor did I think they deserved to, if I'm being brutally honest. But as Napoleon once said, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. And one thing the coalition did have is the good sense to let Labor bang on about it being a climate election. And as it happened, the people responded accordingly. So why then is Scott Morrison now bringing up bloody climate change every chance he gets, including this week in his major flagship speech? Well, you see, the Prime Minister, I think, reckons he's found a fix to this climate business, the climate wars as it's called by the chattering classes. He thinks he's figured out that political Rubik's Cube. ScoMo says the solution on climate isn't a carbon tax or anything like that, heavens no. But instead we'll just invest in cleaner technology. Well, that sounds good. Everyone's a winner from that, right? Well, wrong. But luckily for us, the IPA's Daniel Wild has done extensive research into the real costs of all that so-called clean technology, and I sat down with him earlier to bust the myths wide open. Dan Wild, Director of Research here at the IPA, welcome to the Chamber of Horrors. How are you?
Gideon, great. Good to be back with you, mate.
Yeah, good to have you now. Let's talk about ScoMo's Road to Damascus on climate change. There's a lot of headlines, a lot of misleading misinformation, dangerous misinformation, as they'd say. So Scott Morrison says that we can get net zero, we can have it all. We can get net zero. We'll have this clean energy future, and it's not going to cost us a cent. There'll be none of those new taxes. So everyone's a winner, aren't they?
If only, Gideon, if only. And this is a classic Morrison focusing on the spin rather than the substance. But what we know is one way or another, Australians are going to be hit with a net zero emissions target. It's a carbon tax by stealth. Now, you're either going to get to net zero by taxing industries you don't like, regulating industries you don't like, or subsidising industries that you apparently do like. But either way, this is going to hit Australians working in mining, manufacturing and agricultural sectors. It's going to be Australians in regional Australia that are going to incur the costs of a net zero emissions target, but it's not going to be the inner city elites. No. It's not going to be those living in Canberra. They're protected from the negative consequences.
The people in the wine bars and so on that ScoMo talked about.
Well, he likes to talk about them, but the reality is they are the ones that are setting the policy. This is a policy designed by and for the inner city elites at those cafes and wine bars in inner city Melbourne and inner city Sydney. So this is a very concerning development, even more so, and you've mentioned this many times, 2019, what was it? The climate election. 2013, what was that? A referendum on the carbon tax. So whenever Australians are asked, do you want a carbon tax? No. Do you want a net zero emissions target? No. But then what happens? The political class do it anyway.
Yeah, they do it anyway. And you've done a lot of great research and a lot of great work on Paris. You know, when Paris was the big issue du jour, and we at the IPA have argued for the pulling out of Paris. But basically in that report going all the way back then, you said that this idea that we can achieve even the Paris targets, which is less than net zero, based on energy alone, that's just a myth, isn't it?
It is a myth, Gideon. There's a couple of points about Paris that not a lot of people know about. So this is the Paris Climate Agreement, signed in and ratified in 2015. And we have in Australia the deepest cuts to emissions on a per capita basis anywhere in the world. Now, when you haven't heard anyone say that in the political class, we have the deepest cuts to emissions per capita. China,
they say we're not doing enough.
They say we're not doing enough. We're doing the most. And we are a resource-intense nation.
Correct.
China, who is the single largest emitter of carbon, is completely unconstrained by the Paris Climate Agreement. So if we want to talk about emissions, let's get some facts on the table. But the other point about Paris, Gideon, is that it's got very little to do with the climate or the environment and everything to do with geopolitics, economic advantage. And what is happening to Australia is this deindustrialization. We're losing our jobs, we're losing our regions, we're losing our way of life, but it's also putting us at a competitive disadvantage compared to America, compared to Europe, compared to China. So no matter which way we look at it, it is not good for our nation.
But I mean, we couldn't be at that much of a competitive advantage because the rest of the world is acting, aren't we? I mean, we're so far behind the rest of the world according to the Kevin Rudds and Tim Flannerys of the world. So, we should catch up.
Well, that's right, Gideon. We should catch up. The European Union, you hit on an important point. The European Union is not meeting its targets. Yeah, like I said, China is unconstrained. The US is not meeting its targets. So why are we? Why are we the only nation in the Western world that is pursuing this so vigorously? It doesn't make any sense.
But look, it's not all doom and gloom, is it? I mean, there'll be, for all the jobs that may be lost in some of those old, industries like coal, never mind that it's our number one export, I mean, that little thing, there'll be new green jobs created. Won't those green jobs be better?
Well, Gideon, the point here is that there's no such thing as a new green economy. Right. I mean, this is a line that you see Anthony Albanese talking about it. We're going to have these green jobs, green steel, green manufacturing. Anything with green before it doesn't really exist.
No.
And what we know is that over the last 10 years, for every one job that's been created in the renewables sector, 5 jobs have been destroyed in manufacturing. So there's this myth that, well, those Australians that are working in mining or in agriculture or in manufacturing, the ones that are losing their jobs will find new jobs in this green economy. But that's just not true.
No.
Many of them are losing their jobs and they're never going to find work ever again. And this is not just an economic problem. This is a humanitarian catastrophe. And this is something
a moral problem
It's
too.
a deeply moral problem because it's not the people imposing this policy that are losing their jobs. No, this is hardworking Australians in the regions and outer suburbs who voted for the Morrison government. They got them into government and now they're being hit by the Morrison government.
But as I said, it's a moral argument too, because even if theoretically you could retrain a whole, these are grown adults, these are proud working people who've been doing their job sometimes for generations. I mean, I wouldn't like it if somebody kicked the door down in this place and said, we don't think think tanks have a future. We're going to retrain you as an accountant or something. I mean, how can these elites we talk about just, like Malcolm Turnbull the other day said, well, they'll go into winemaking and horse farming or some goddamn thing.
Did you ask them about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Did they want to do that?
Well, they had a vote on it and they voted no.
Yeah.
Hunter. Joel Fitzgibbon got like a 20% swing against him or something.
That's right. And the issue here, Gideon, as you said, proud working people, and it's a source of dignity. They want to work on the land. They're proud to be coal miners because they're powering the world. Yeah. They're lifting people out of poverty.
And keeping our economy afloat.
Keeping businesses going. So it's a very proud job. There's nothing wrong with being a farmer, a miner, or a worker. The other point is, as to your question about why, well, many of the elites look down on these people. They look down on them. They're a hindrance to progress. They're in the way of our green, new, progressive future.
Because they vote the wrong way too.
They vote the wrong way and they want them to go away. There's a lot of disdain amongst the political class for Australians working in mining and manufacturing.
Yeah, but I mean, leaving aside people who happen to work in mining and manufacturing though, I mean, still though, green, new technology, all this sort of stuff, it's got to be a vote winner, doesn't it?
Well, interesting, Gideon. If you look at the coalition, we've done some research looking at the electoral dynamics. We've talked a bit about the culture and the economics, and we're looking at the electoral dynamics. And what's interesting is that the Liberal Party and the coalition more generally is fairly bifurcated. So they have the vast majority of voters vote for them who are in those industries, in agriculture, in mining, to a lesser extent in manufacturing, although they did swing towards the coalition at the 2019 election. But they also hold a majority of the seats in the inner cities where a low number of people work in those industries. Right. So this is the two. You have the teal component of the Liberal Party, this kind of green Liberal component in the inner cities, and then you have the heartland out in the regions and the outer suburbs. So there's been this tension in the coalition for a long time. But just on net zero, we know that it's actually the Nationals, 7 out of the top 10 seats that will lose the most jobs from a net zero emissions target are held by the Nationals party room.
Is that right?
And so this is why you have people like Senator Matt Canavan saying, well, hold on a minute. This is not what we promised and this is not what we want for our country or for our party.
But Matt Canavan is no longer in the leadership of the Nationals. He went with Barnaby Joyce more or less. So what are the leadership of the current, what are Michael McCormack and those people going? Are they going along with this or is there any pushback?
It appears they're going along with it. There's not a lot of pushback. You see Senator It is, and you see Senator Canavan and some others speaking out. But in terms of the leadership, I think you're right. But the broader issue here is that it's not just about the Liberal Party or the Nationals, it's about Australia. It's about who has a voice. Who is the voice for mainstream Australia? They don't have a voice. It's not in the Labor Party.
No.
They call them racist and xenophobe and they don't care about their jobs. It's not really in the Liberal Party.
No.
Because they're focused on these inner city seats.
Correct.
Now, it's places like here, I mean, this is why so many people are watching this show, because it's things like this which is the mainstream, the voice for mainstream. But there needs to be a political realignment to take place so that the Liberals and the Nationals need to become the coalition of working class mainstream Australians to give them a voice again.
Yeah, correct. And that's where the electoral centre of gravity lies. And as you said, and this is the point we make over and over and over again at the IPA through our research, which is people vote against climate action, whatever the hell it looks like, almost every chance they get, because they know it'll be higher prices, it'll be fewer jobs, it'll be economic insecurity all around, it'll be less reliable electricity, but they keep getting climate action anyway. It's just bashing your head against a brick wall.
That's right, and it's an example of how the elites and the political class, and when I say elites, we mean politicians, mostly on both sides, the permanent bureaucracy, these woke big corporations, the taxpayer-funded non-government organisations, the sporting codes, this kind of...
The professions,
this kind of elite group, they deep down have a disdain of democracy. They call it populism when they don't like, we like democracy, we don't like populism. But populism is democracy. No, it's channeling the views and aspirations of people that vote in elections.
And populism is a reaction, I suppose, against a situation in which you have policy outcomes that are not commensurate to popular will as expressed through elections. That's when you get that exacerbates populism. It's a symptom, not a cause of all of this.
That's exactly right. And that's Brexit and that's Trump. And there's a deep frustration in Australia where we see the share of votes going to the major parties declining. People want a voice and they're not getting the voice. And time again on the big issues, climate change being one of the big issues, the political class have basically decided this is the right view. We've already decided what we're going to do. You can vote how you want, but no matter what, you're going to get this. And this is net zero. It doesn't matter who you vote for. You're getting the same outcomes. And that's a very big challenge to our democracy.
And just to make sure you don't vote the wrong way, we're going to make sure that you don't see any misinformation which might encourage you to vote the wrong way. We'll make sure that information is curated via the ABC and the Sydney Morning Herald, as Malcolm Turnbull, used to pine for those days when that was the case. But anyway, to you, Dan Wild, you're doing so much excellent research on this. I think we're the only organisation really in the country left who are speaking out against this lunacy. Everybody else has taken the blue pill and all this stuff. So thank you for the work you do. Looking forward to having you on again, and I suspect we'll be talking about this many a time.
Thanks, Gideon, and congratulations on your increasing viewership on this show. It's going great.
Man. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.